Have you ever found yourself caught in the storm of self-doubt, wondering if you're good enough or worthy of the life you dream of? I know how it feels because I've been there. That deep, gnawing insecurity that whispers you're not enough. It's something so many of us struggle with. But here's what I've learned. It doesn't have to be this way. I want to share with you something powerful, something that has transformed not only my life, but the lives of countless others over thousands of years. It's a perspective rooted in Buddhist wisdom that teaches us how to reconnect with our inner strength, how to find clarity and self-worth, and how to let go of the heavy burden of feeling like we constantly need to prove ourselves. I'll be honest, this journey isn't about quick fixes or temporary feel-good tricks. It's about grounding yourself in principles that have stood the test of time. It's about understanding that your value doesn't come from what others think of you, how much you achieve, or the roles you play. Instead, it comes from within, your actions, your intentions, and the way you choose to live your life each day. Let me share a story. There was once a young monk who approached his teacher and confessed, "I feel so small, so unworthy. No matter what I do, I feel like I'm not enough." The teacher, a wise and gentle soul, handed him a small bowl and said, "Fill this with water from the river, and as you walk back, don't let a single drop spill." The young monk carefully carried the bowl, step by step, his eyes fixed on the water. When he returned, the teacher smiled and asked, "What did you see on your way?" The monk hesitated. "Nothing," he replied. "I was so focused on not spilling the water that I didn't notice anything else." The teacher gently took the bowl and said, "This is how we must treat our inner self. When we focus on guarding our peace, our intentions, and our actions, we stop noticing the distractions, the judgments, comparisons, and doubts that try to pull us down." This story resonated deeply with me because it's a reminder that building unshakable self-esteem starts with attention. Attention to how we treat ourselves, what we hold on to, and what we let go of. Today, I want to walk you through some of the most profound Buddhist lessons I've learned on this path. Lessons that have helped me, and so many others, find strength in vulnerability, confidence in authenticity, and peace in the chaos. Let's explore these timeless teachings together and take the first step toward a more grounded, fearless, and joyful version of yourself. 1. Accept your imperfections. One of the most liberating lessons I've learned on this journey is the power of accepting our imperfections. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing we have to be perfect to be worthy. Perfect in our actions, our thoughts, even our appearance. I used to carry this heavy burden, constantly feeling like I wasn't enough because I wasn't flawless. But then, through Buddhist teachings, I realized something profound. Perfection is an illusion. The Buddha taught that life is a balance of light and shadow, and within every one of us lies both. Our imperfections are not flaws to erase. They are parts of the whole that make us human. The lotus, a symbol of purity and enlightenment in Buddhism, blooms beautifully even though its roots are deep in the mud. Without the mud, the lotus wouldn't exist. In the same way, our mistakes, our shortcomings, and even our struggles are the fertile ground for our growth. I remember a time when I was paralyzed by self-criticism. A mistake at work felt like the end of the world. I replayed it over and over in my head, beating myself up for not doing better. It was during this time that a mentor introduced me to the Buddhist practice of self-compassion. She told me, "Treat yourself as you would a dear friend who made the same mistake. Would you be this harsh to them?" That simple thought shifted everything. I began practicing what Buddhists call metta, loving kindness. This practice encourages us to send kind thoughts, not just to others, but to ourselves. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. These words became a balm for my wounded self-esteem. When you accept your imperfections, you stop wasting energy on self-loathing and start focusing on growth. You begin to see mistakes as teachers, not enemies. I started asking myself, what can I learn from this? How can this make me wiser, stronger, more compassionate? Accepting your imperfections doesn't mean you stop trying to improve. It means you stop punishing yourself for being human. Progress comes from kindness, not cruelty. When you embrace this truth, you'll feel a weight lift off your shoulders. You'll realize that the cracks in your life aren't flaws, they're the spaces where light enters. 2. Be authentic. Authenticity is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself and the world. For the longest time, I thought I had to wear masks to fit in. I tried to be who I thought others wanted me to be, a version of myself that felt safer, more acceptable. But deep down, I felt disconnected, like I was losing pieces of myself every day. Buddhism teaches us that authenticity is the path to inner peace. The Buddha said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This means finding your light, your truth, and letting it guide you, no matter how the world reacts. Living authentically is not about being rebellious or loud. It's about aligning your actions, thoughts, and values with your true self. I'll share a personal story. A few years ago, I found myself in a job that didn't align with my values. On the surface, everything looked fine. I was earning well, meeting expectations, but inside, I felt like a fraud. I was doing work that didn't resonate with who I truly was. I stayed because I thought it was what I was supposed to do, but every day, I felt further from myself. One day, during a meditation session, a simple question came to mind. If I strip away everyone else's opinions, what do I truly want? The answer scared me. It meant leaving the familiar, risking judgment, and stepping into the unknown. But I knew I had to honor that truth. When I finally made the decision to leave and pursue something more aligned with my values, I felt lighter, freer. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt. But the more I leaned into my authenticity, the stronger I became. Being authentic means trusting that who you are is enough. It means letting go of the need to seek validation from others and instead finding it within yourself. I've learned that when you live authentically, the right people will be drawn to you, not for who you pretend to be, but for who you truly are. Authenticity also means embracing your quirks, your passions, and even your weirdness. Those unique parts of you are not weaknesses, they're your superpowers. When you live authentically, you stop chasing approval and start attracting respect, because there's nothing more magnetic than someone who is unapologetically themselves. Take a moment to ask yourself, am I living in alignment with my truth? If the answer is no, know that it's never too late to start. Being authentic is not about arriving at a destination. It's about walking the path that feels right for you, one step at a time. 3. Seek balance. Balance is a lesson that life teaches us repeatedly, whether we choose to listen or not. For a long time, I ignored it. I thought balance was a luxury, something I'd focus on after I achieved everything I wanted. I threw myself into work, neglected my health, and barely made time for the relationships that mattered. It wasn't until I felt the effects of burnout, physically, emotionally, and mentally, that I realized how essential balance truly is. Buddhism emphasizes the middle way, a principle that guides us to avoid extremes and find harmony in all aspects of life. The Buddha himself discovered this after years of self-denial and austerity as an ascetic, followed by a life of indulgence as a prince. Neither extreme brought him peace. It was only when he embraced the middle way, a path of balance, that he found enlightenment. In our daily lives, balance looks different for everyone. For me, it meant learning to prioritize my well-being alongside my ambitions. I started paying attention to the rhythms of my body and mind. When I was overworking, I'd pause to ask myself, is this sustainable? Am I neglecting something important to me? Balance also meant learning to let go of the guilt I felt when I wasn't being productive. In Buddhist teachings, there's a term called upeksha, which means equanimity or steadiness. It's about maintaining inner peace no matter what's happening around you. I realized that balance isn't just about juggling responsibilities. It's about finding a steady, grounded place within yourself. One practical way I began seeking balance was by creating daily rituals. I started each morning with meditation, even if it was just 5 minutes, to ground myself before the day's chaos. I also set boundaries with my time, ensuring I had moments to connect with loved ones, exercise, and rest. When we're out of balance, we feel it. Stress, frustration, and even physical illness are often signs that something needs adjustment. Seeking balance is an ongoing practice, not a one-time solution. It's about regularly checking in with yourself and making the small intentional shifts needed to stay aligned. When you embrace balance, life feels less overwhelming. You become more present, more resilient, and more connected to the things that truly matter. Ask yourself, where in your life do you feel imbalance right now? What small step can you take today to restore harmony? 4. Learn to say no. Saying no is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect, yet for so many of us, it feels impossibly hard. I used to struggle with this a lot. Whenever someone asked for my help, even if I was already overwhelmed, I'd say yes. I didn't want to disappoint anyone, but deep down, I was the one feeling disappointed in myself for putting others' needs above my own. Buddhism teaches us that boundaries are essential for cultivating inner peace. There's a beautiful concept in Buddhist philosophy called right action, which means making choices that align with your values and well-being. Saying no when necessary is part of practicing right action. For me, learning to say no started with understanding why I found it so difficult. Was it fear of rejection, guilt, a need to feel needed? Once I confronted these fears, I realized that saying yes to everything was actually making me less effective and more resentful. I'll never forget the first time I said no without over-explaining. A colleague asked me to take on a project I didn't have time for, and instead of my usual, "Sure, I'll figure it out," I said, "I can't take this on right now, but I'm happy to help in the future." It felt liberating. I was respectful but firm, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to justify myself. Saying no is not about being selfish. It's about recognizing your limits and honoring them. When you say no to something that drains you, you're saying yes to something that matters more: your health, your passions, your peace of mind. Buddhist teachings also remind us to approach these moments with compassion. When you say no, do it with kindness and sincerity. You don't need to be harsh or dismissive. A simple, honest explanation is enough. "I appreciate you asking, but I'm unable to commit right now," is a phrase I've used often, and it works. The more I practiced saying no, the more confident I became. I realized that people respected my honesty and boundaries far more than I expected. And for those who didn't, that was a sign they weren't respecting me to begin with. So, let me ask you this. How often do you say yes out of obligation, fear, or guilt? What would happen if, just once, you put your needs first? I encourage you to try it. Start small. The next time someone asks for your time or energy, pause and reflect. Does this align with my values and capacity? If not, let yourself say no. When you master the art of saying no, You create space in your life for what truly matters. You reclaim your energy, your time, and most importantly, your self-worth. 5. Practice self-compassion. Self-compassion was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn. For years, I held myself to impossibly high standards, believing that if I wasn't hard on myself, I'd never improve. But instead of motivating me, this relentless self-criticism only left me feeling small and exhausted. It wasn't until I stumbled upon the Buddhist practice of karuna, or compassion, that I realized the importance of treating myself with the same kindness I extended to others. Buddhism teaches us that suffering is a universal experience. No one is exempt from pain, mistakes, or moments of weakness. When we understand this, we begin to see that our imperfections don't make us less worthy, they make us human. Instead of punishing ourselves for our struggles, we can meet them with compassion, just as we would for a friend who is hurting. For me, practicing self-compassion started with changing my inner dialogue. Whenever I failed at something or felt inadequate, I began asking myself, what would I say to someone I love if they were in my shoes? This simple shift helped me replace harsh criticism with words of understanding and support. Instead of saying, I'm so stupid for messing up, I started saying, I'm going through a tough time, and that's okay. What can I learn from this? Self-compassion also involves taking care of yourself in meaningful ways. It's not just about kind words, it's about kind actions. For me, this meant prioritizing rest when I was tired, seeking help when I needed it, and forgiving myself for not having all the answers. I started seeing self-care not as indulgence, but as an act of respect for my well-being. One of the most transformative practices I've adopted is loving-kindness meditation, where I silently offer phrases of compassion to myself and others. I often repeat, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free from suffering. These words serve as a gentle reminder that I am deserving of the same love and kindness I give to others. Self-compassion isn't about avoiding accountability or excusing harmful behavior. It's about approaching our flaws and failures with curiosity instead of judgment. It's about understanding that growth comes from a place of care, not cruelty. If you're struggling to show yourself compassion, remember this. You are a work in progress, just like everyone else. You are allowed to falter, to learn, and to try again. When you embrace this truth, you'll find a deep sense of peace and resilience that no external validation can provide. 6. Find your purpose. Finding purpose is one of the most profound and fulfilling journeys you can embark on. For years, I felt like I was drifting through life, doing what was expected of me but never truly feeling connected to my actions. It wasn't until I turned to Buddhist teachings that I began to understand the importance of living with intention and aligning my actions with my deeper values. Buddhism teaches that a meaningful life comes from right livelihood, living in a way that reflects your principles and contributes positively to the world. Your purpose doesn't have to be grand or world-changing. It can be as simple as cultivating kindness, helping others, or pursuing a craft that brings you joy. What matters is that it feels true to who you are. For me, finding purpose began with reflection. I asked myself questions like, what brings me joy? What do I value most? And how can I use my strengths to make a difference? At first, the answers weren't clear, but over time, patterns emerged. I realized that teaching, sharing knowledge, and helping others find clarity brought me immense satisfaction. Purpose isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you cultivate. I started by taking small, intentional steps toward activities that aligned with my values. I volunteered for causes I cared about, pursued hobbies that sparked my curiosity, and surrounded myself with people who inspired me. Each step, no matter how small, brought me closer to a sense of fulfillment. One teaching that deeply resonates with me is the Buddhist idea of interconnectedness. Our purpose is rarely about us alone. It's about how we fit into the greater web of life. When I began viewing my actions through this lens, I felt a stronger connection to the world around me. I realized that my purpose wasn't just about finding personal happiness. It was about contributing to something larger. I'll never forget the moment it all clicked for me. I was mentoring someone who was struggling to find direction, and as I watched them grow and thrive, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I realized that my purpose wasn't just about what I achieved. It was about the impact I had on others. If you're searching for your purpose, start by looking within. What excites you? What values guide your decisions? What makes you lose track of time? Purpose isn't a destination. It's a journey of self-discovery and alignment. When you live with purpose, you wake up each day with clarity and motivation. You no longer feel like a leaf blown by the wind. You become the wind itself, moving with intention and direction. Let this be your reminder. Your purpose is already within you, waiting to be uncovered. Take the first step, and the path will reveal itself. 7. Develop a growth mindset. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned in life is that our mindset shapes everything. For years, I believed my abilities and qualities were fixed. I thought I was either good at something or I wasn't, capable or incapable. This belief held me back in ways I didn't even realize. It wasn't until I embraced the concept of a growth mindset, inspired by both Buddhist teachings and modern psychology, that I understood my true potential. In Buddhism, there is a focus on impermanence, the idea that everything is constantly changing, including ourselves. The Buddha taught that nothing in life is static, and this truth can be incredibly liberating when applied to how we see ourselves. When we embrace change, we realize that we are not defined by our past mistakes, limitations, or even our current circumstances. We are always evolving, always capable of learning and growing. For me, developing a growth mindset began with letting go of my fear of failure. I used to avoid challenges because I was terrified of not being good enough. But through Buddhist practices like mindfulness and self-reflection, I learned to see failure as a teacher. Every setback became an opportunity to grow, every mistake a chance to learn. I started taking small, deliberate steps outside of my comfort zone. Whether it was learning a new skill, facing a difficult conversation, or taking on a project I wasn't sure I could handle, I approached each challenge with curiosity instead of fear. Whenever I stumbled, I reminded myself of a core Buddhist principle, right effort, the idea that growth comes not from perfection, but from consistent, intentional effort. One of the most transformative practices for me was adopting the mantra, "This too is part of my journey." It helped me see that struggles and setbacks aren't roadblocks. They're stepping stones. Each time I overcame a challenge, I felt my confidence grow. I wasn't just improving my skills, I was reshaping the way I saw myself. A growth mindset isn't just about achieving goals, it's about embracing the process of becoming. It's about celebrating progress, no matter how small, and recognizing that every step forward, even if it's tiny, is a victory. If you're struggling to develop a growth mindset, start by asking yourself, what's one thing I've been avoiding because I'm afraid of failing? Take one small step toward it. Allow yourself to learn, stumble, and try again. You'll be amazed at how far you can go when you stop fearing failure and start seeing it as part of the journey. 8. Gratitude toward yourself. Gratitude is a practice that most of us direct outward, to the people, opportunities, and experiences that bring joy to our lives. But have you ever paused to show gratitude to yourself? I didn't for a long time. I was so focused on everything I hadn't done, everything I thought I lacked, that I rarely acknowledged the efforts I made, the challenges I overcame, or the progress I achieved. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of cultivating gratitude in all aspects of life, including toward oneself. In Metta Bhavana, loving kindness meditation, we are encouraged to direct compassion and appreciation inward. This practice reminds us that we too are deserving of kindness, forgiveness, and gratitude. When I began practicing gratitude toward myself, it felt strange at first. I was so used to critiquing myself that the idea of celebrating my efforts felt almost indulgent. But over time, I realized how transformative it was. I started small, acknowledging the little things I did each day, like finishing a task, taking care of my health, or simply showing up when it was hard. Buddhism teaches us that the way we think about ourselves shapes our reality. As the Buddha said, your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts. By practicing gratitude toward yourself, you transform those thoughts into allies instead of enemies. One habit that helped me was keeping a self-gratitude journal. Each evening, I'd write down 3 things I appreciated about myself that day. At first, it was hard to find even one thing, but as I kept going, I realized there was so much to be grateful for: my persistence, my courage, my ability to grow even when things felt difficult. Gratitude toward yourself isn't about ignoring your flaws or avoiding accountability. It's about acknowledging that you are trying, learning, and growing. It's about seeing yourself as a whole person, someone worthy of the same appreciation and care you'd give to a loved one. If you've never practiced gratitude toward yourself, start today. Take a moment to reflect on something you've done recently that made you proud, no matter how small. Thank yourself for it. Recognize the effort, the courage, or the love it took. When you make self-gratitude a habit, you'll notice a shift in the way you see yourself. You'll feel stronger, more grounded, and more connected to your own worth. And that, in itself, is a gift worth celebrating. 9. Cultivate positive relationships. Relationships shape us in profound ways. The people we surround ourselves with can either uplift us or drain us, inspire us or hold us back. For years, I didn't pay much attention to this. I thought as long as I treated others kindly, everything would naturally work out. But over time, I learned that cultivating positive relationships requires intentional effort and mindfulness. In Buddhism, there is a deep emphasis on kalyana mitta, or spiritual friends. These are the people who walk alongside us on our journey, offering support, wisdom, and encouragement. They aren't necessarily perfect or always agreeable, but they genuinely care about our growth and well-being. I remember a time when I was holding on to relationships that felt draining. I constantly felt judged, misunderstood, or unsupported. It wasn't until I began practicing mindfulness that I noticed how much these connections were impacting my emotional health. Through reflection, I realized that some relationships, though familiar, were not nourishing my spirit. Buddhist teachings help me see the importance of choosing relationships that align with my values and aspirations. Cultivating positive relationships doesn't mean abandoning everyone who challenges us. It means being intentional about who we invest our time and energy in. It means fostering connections that are rooted in mutual respect, compassion, and authenticity. I also learned that cultivating positive relationships starts with me. If I wanted kindness, I needed to be kind. If I wanted honesty, I needed to be honest. Relationships are a reflection of what we bring to them. One of the most transformative practices I adopted was consciously expressing gratitude to the people in my life. A simple thank you for their support or kindness strengthened bonds in ways I never expected. At the same time, I learned to set boundaries. Positive relationships thrive when there is mutual respect for each other's limits and needs. Saying no to toxic behaviors or unrealistic expectations doesn't weaken a relationship. It strengthens it by fostering honesty and understanding. Ask yourself, are the relationships in your life bringing out your best self? Are you nurturing connections that inspire and support you? If not, take small steps to align your relationships with the values that matter most to you. Positive relationships are a cornerstone of a fulfilling life. 10. Live in the present. Living in the present is one of the most powerful teachings of Buddhism, yet it's one of the hardest to practice. For much of my life, I found myself trapped in two places, replaying the past and worrying about the future. I'd dwell on mistakes I couldn't change or anxiously plan for things that might never happen. What I didn't realize was how much this mental time travel was stealing from my life. Buddhism emphasizes mindfulness, the practice of bringing your awareness to the present moment. The Buddha taught that true happiness can only be found here and now, not in the regrets of yesterday or the uncertainties of tomorrow. The moment I truly grasped this teaching was during a simple activity, eating a meal. Normally, I'd rush through my food, scrolling on my phone or thinking about my to-do list. But one day, I decided to eat mindfully. I focused on each bite, noticing the flavors, textures, and the effort it took to prepare the food. For the first time in a long time, I felt deeply present, and it was transformative. Living in the present doesn't mean ignoring the past or neglecting the future. It means fully engaging with what is happening right now. When you're present, you notice the small joys, a warm conversation, the feel of the sun on your skin, the sound of laughter. You also face challenges with greater clarity because you're not clouded by distractions or fears. I've found that mindfulness meditation is one of the best ways to cultivate this practice. Taking even 5 minutes a day to focus on my breath, to observe my thoughts without judgment, has helped me ground myself in the present moment. It's a simple yet powerful way to train the mind to let go of distractions. Living in the present has also taught me to let go of things I can't control. As the Buddha said, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment. This teaching reminds me that worrying about what I can't change is a waste of my energy. Instead, I focus on what I can do now, in this moment, to bring peace and purpose to my life. If you find yourself caught in the past or the future, take a deep breath and bring your attention back to the present. Notice the sounds around you, the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your breath. This simple act can anchor you in the here and now, where life is truly happening. Living in the present is not just a practice, it's a gift you give yourself. It's where joy resides, where clarity emerges, and where you discover the true essence of who you are. 11. Practice gratitude toward others. Gratitude is one of the most transformative practices in life, and while it's essential to show gratitude to ourselves, extending that gratitude to others is just as powerful. In my experience, gratitude is like a bridge. It connects us to the people who make our lives better and fosters deeper, more meaningful relationships. In Buddhism, the concept of mudita, or sympathetic joy, encourages us to celebrate the happiness and kindness of others. This practice helps us shift our focus from what we lack to the abundance of goodness around us. When we acknowledge the contributions others make to our lives, we create a sense of connection that nurtures both them and ourselves. For a long time, I took small acts of kindness for granted. A friend lending a listening ear, a colleague stepping in to help, or even the barista who prepared my coffee with a smile. All these moments passed without much thought. But as I began exploring gratitude as a Buddhist practice, I realized how much beauty I was overlooking. Practicing gratitude toward others starts with awareness. I began taking moments throughout my day to pause and reflect on the people who had supported me, inspired me, or simply made my day a little brighter. At first it felt small, just a silent thank you in my mind. But over time, I started expressing that gratitude out loud, and the results were profound. I'll never forget one moment in particular. I wrote a heartfelt note to a mentor who had guided me through a tough time. I thought it was a small gesture, but their reaction showed me how impactful gratitude can be. They told me it was a reminder of their purpose, a spark that reignited their passion for helping others. Gratitude toward others doesn't just benefit them, it transforms us. It shifts our mindset from scarcity to abundance, from self-centeredness to interconnectedness. When we express appreciation, we strengthen bonds, create positivity, and open our hearts to giving and receiving love. If you want to cultivate this practice, start small. Think of one person who has made a difference in your life recently and thank them. It could be a text, a call, or a face-to-face moment of appreciation. You'll find that the more you practice gratitude, the more joy and connection you'll invite into your life. 12. Build resilience. Resilience is the quiet strength that allows us to face life's storms and keep moving forward. It's not about avoiding challenges or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding the courage to rise after we fall, to learn from pain, and to grow stronger through adversity. In Buddhism, resilience is deeply tied to the concept of dukkha, or suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering is an inevitable part of life, but how we respond to it defines our journey. Resilience is not about eliminating difficulties. It's about transforming our relationship with them. I've had my share of moments where life felt overwhelming. One particularly tough period came after a major personal setback that left me questioning my worth. I remember sitting in meditation, wrestling with feelings of failure and despair. Slowly, I began to realize that the pain I was feeling wasn't something to run from. It was something to sit with, to understand. Buddhist practices like mindfulness and equanimity taught me to approach challenges with curiosity rather than resistance. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" I started asking, "What can I learn from this?" This shift in perspective was life-changing. One of the most powerful tools I've used to build resilience is self-compassion. When we treat ourselves with kindness during difficult times, we create a safe space to heal and rebuild. Resilience doesn't come from harshness. It comes from acknowledging our struggles while nurturing our strength. Another lesson I've learned is the importance of accepting impermanence. Everything in life, joy, pain, success, failure, is temporary. When we embrace this truth, we stop clinging to the highs and fearing the lows. Instead, we learn to flow with life, knowing that every challenge will eventually pass. Resilience is also strengthened by community. Surrounding myself with supportive, compassionate people has been a cornerstone of my growth. In Buddhism, the Sangha, or community, plays a vital role in helping us navigate life's challenges. Leaning on others for support doesn't make us weak. It reminds us of our interconnectedness and shared humanity. If you're looking to build resilience, start by embracing small practices of mindfulness and self-compassion. When you face difficulties, remind yourself that it's okay to struggle and that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. Resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being flexible, like a tree that bends in the wind but doesn't snap. With every challenge you face, you're growing stronger, wiser, and more capable of navigating whatever comes your way. Let resilience be your anchor, and you'll find that even in life's toughest moments, there is always a way forward. 13. Maintain perspective. One of the most powerful tools I've learned in life is the ability to maintain perspective. When life feels overwhelming, it's easy to get consumed by problems that seem larger than they really are. I've been there, stuck in a loop of overthinking, allowing one bad moment to overshadow everything else. But Buddhist teachings have shown me that perspective is the key to finding clarity and peace. Buddhism teaches us that suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from how we perceive them. The Buddha said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." This truth has transformed the way I approach challenges. I've come to understand that while we can't control what happens, we can control how we interpret and respond to it. I remember a time when a project I worked hard on failed. At first, I let it define me. I felt like a complete failure, but during meditation, I reflected on the impermanence of the situation. I realized that this failure, as painful as it was, didn't erase my efforts or my worth. It was a single moment in the larger story of my life, not the whole narrative. Maintaining perspective means stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. It's asking yourself, will this matter in a week, a year, 5 years? Often, what feels unbearable in the moment becomes a distant memory over time. This simple practice has helped me stay grounded, even in the face of adversity. Another Buddhist teaching that has guided me is equanimity, the ability to stay calm and balanced, regardless of life's highs and lows. When you cultivate equanimity, you don't ignore problems, you simply refuse to let them consume you. It's like standing in the middle of a storm with a sense of inner stillness, knowing the storm will pass. Maintaining perspective also means practicing gratitude. When I feel overwhelmed, I take a moment to reflect on what's going well in my life. Gratitude reminds me that no matter how tough things get, there is always something to be thankful for. It shifts my focus from what's missing to what's present, helping me see challenges in a more balanced light. If you're struggling to maintain perspective, try this. Take a deep breath and step away from the situation for a moment. Remind yourself that this is just one chapter, not the whole book. By grounding yourself in the bigger picture, you'll find the strength to navigate even the most difficult moments with grace and clarity. 14. Practice self-discipline. Self-discipline is often seen as a rigid, restrictive concept, but in reality, it's a path to freedom. Without it, we become slaves to distractions, impulses, and habits that don't serve us. I used to resist self-discipline because it felt limiting, but through Buddhist teachings, I've come to see it as an act of self-love. Buddhism places great emphasis on right effort, one of the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right effort is about dedicating yourself to actions and habits that lead to personal growth and well-being. It's not about perfection or punishing yourself for slipping up. It's about consistency and intention. For me, practicing self-discipline started with small, manageable commitments. I remember deciding to meditate every morning for 5 minutes. At first, it felt insignificant. What could 5 minutes really change? But over time, this simple practice became a cornerstone of my day, a moment of peace and clarity that set the tone for everything else. Self-discipline isn't just about sticking to routines. It's about aligning your actions with your values. When you practice self-discipline, you're telling yourself, I respect my time, my goals, and my potential. This shift in mindset was transformative for me. Instead of seeing discipline as a chore, I began to see it as a way to honor myself. Buddhism also teaches the importance of mindfulness in cultivating self-discipline. By staying present, you can catch yourself before falling into habits that don't align with your intentions. For example, when I feel the urge to procrastinate, I pause and ask myself, is this choice serving my goals or distracting me from them? This simple moment of awareness often redirects my actions. One of the hardest but most rewarding lessons I've learned is that self-discipline requires patience. Progress isn't always visible, and results take time. But every small act of discipline, whether it's exercising, eating mindfully, or focusing on a task, builds momentum. Over time, these small victories create a ripple effect that transforms your life. If you're struggling with self-discipline, start with one small habit. Commit to something that feels achievable and focus on consistency rather than intensity. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and be kind to yourself when you falter. Self-discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up for yourself day after day with intention and care. When you embrace this practice, you'll discover a deeper sense of control, confidence, and freedom in your life. 15. Accept what you cannot change. Acceptance is one of the most profound and challenging lessons in life. For years, I resisted this idea. I wanted to control everything, outcomes, people, situations, and I believed that if I tried hard enough, I could bend reality to my will. But all this effort left me frustrated, exhausted, and disheartened. It wasn't until I embraced the Buddhist principle of upekkha, or equanimity, that I began to understand the power of accepting what I cannot change. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from our refusal to accept it. The Buddha compared life to a river, always flowing, always changing. Trying to control the current or stop the flow only creates tension. True peace comes when we stop resisting and allow life to move as it will. I remember a time when this lesson hit me hard. A close relationship in my life had taken a difficult turn, and no matter how much I tried to fix it, nothing worked. I felt helpless and heartbroken, clinging to the hope that things would go back to the way they were. But during a meditation session, I had a realization. I couldn't control the other person's actions or feelings. All I could control was how I chose to respond. Accepting what you cannot change doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means recognizing what is within your control and what isn't. Buddhism emphasizes the dichotomy of control, a concept later echoed by Stoic philosophy. It teaches us to focus on what we can influence, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes. Everything else, the opinions of others, the outcomes of our efforts, even the weather, is beyond our control and must be met with acceptance. For me, this practice began with letting go of the need to have all the answers. I started asking myself, is this something I can change? If the answer was no, I redirected my energy toward things I could influence. This shift brought a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced before. Acceptance is not resignation. It's not saying, "This is fine," when it isn't. Instead, it's acknowledging reality as it is and finding peace within it. It's about freeing yourself from the mental tug-of-war that comes with trying to control the uncontrollable. One way I practice acceptance is through mindful breathing. When I feel overwhelmed by something I can't change, I take a few deep breaths and remind myself, this moment is as it is. I cannot change the past or control the future, but I can choose how I respond now. This simple practice grounds me and helps me move forward with clarity. Another practice that has helped is reflecting on impermanence. Nothing in life, whether good or bad, lasts forever. When I remember this, it's easier to let go of resistance and embrace the flow of life. If you're struggling to accept something beyond your control, know that you're not alone. It's a deeply human challenge, but it's also a path to profound peace. Start by identifying one thing you've been resisting. Acknowledge it without judgment and remind yourself that letting go doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've chosen peace over struggle. When you accept what you cannot change, you reclaim your energy and focus. You stop wasting time fighting battles you can't win and instead invest in what truly matters: your inner growth, your peace of mind, and your ability to navigate life's uncertainties with grace. Acceptance isn't weakness, it's the ultimate strength. As we wrap up this journey through the 15 Buddhist keys to indestructible self-esteem, I want to leave you with a reminder. Self-esteem isn't something you need to chase. It's already within you. These timeless teachings are here to guide you back to your natural state of inner strength, peace, and self-worth. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these keys resonated with you the most? Are there any practices you're excited to try, or perhaps ones you've already incorporated into your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading and responding to as many as I can. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future content like this. Together, we'll continue exploring the wisdom of Buddhism and other transformative teachings to help you live your best life. Thank you for watching, and remember, the path to self-esteem and inner peace is a lifelong journey, and every step you take matters. See you in the next video.